Now, details of what was the boldest covert operation of the war in Ukraine have been revealed by the Wall Street Journal. They tell us about a real-life Trojan horse plot, smuggling more than 100 attack drones into Russia, hidden inside prefab cabins. Operation Spiderweb, as it was called, took 18 months of planning, of subterfuge, and, in the end, a touch of luck. James Marson is the Wall Street Journal's Ukraine bureau chief and has been writing about this. James, welcome to you.
Hi, John.
James, I so enjoyed reading your piece. I mean, the operation was beyond imagination. The story that you tell is gripping, and the outcome was astonishing in its level of success.
Yes, it was quite amazing how the Ukrainians were able to achieve this. I think it's quite a typical success story for Ukraine. That is something that we've seen throughout the war, is how they've been able to use technology, subterfuge, and just some quite audacious operations in order to fight what is a David versus Goliath battle against the Russians. We've seen them do incredible things like blowing up Russia's Kerch Bridge to Crimea with a truck bomb, killing a Russian general with an exploding scooter. And this was quite simply the most ambitious operation that they've tried to execute yet, and they managed to pull it off.
And using prefabricated cabins loaded onto the back of lorries, and those cabins loaded up with attack drones ready to be flown out of there, from as the roof is remotely rolled back. It's like I know this is such a trite analogy, and it's so cliched, but it's like the most extraordinary Hollywood movie. I mean, so much could have gone wrong at almost any stage.
That's right. I mean, the challenge that Ukrainians faced is that these Russian planes that were flinging missiles towards Ukrainian cities, and they're hard to shoot out of the sky. They were out of the range of many of the Ukrainian missile systems. The Ukrainian missile systems didn't have enough missiles to try to shoot them down. So Ukraine had to find a way to get some attack methods inside Russia in order to try and take these aircraft out while they were on the ground. The way that they did it was by using a Ukrainian couple who were living in the city of Chelyabinsk. And what they did was they smuggled these drones into Russia. They smuggled the prefabricated cabins into Russia. The couple, one of whom used to be a DJ in Kiev, and the other of whom was working as a tattoo artist in Chelyabinsk. They were quite easily able to blend in with the locals. They spoke the fluent Russian, as many Ukrainians do. They even had Russian passports. And so they were able to put together these drones, put together the prefabricated houses. They then hired truck drivers as part of what seemed to be a normal kind of delivery of these prefabricated homes across Russia. They then stopped pretty close to these Russian airports, and the drones were released. And the drone pilots who were sitting in an operations center in Kiev then took charge of the drones and sent them smashing into Russian airplanes on the ground.
Yeah, a highly skilled set of drone operators sitting there in Kiev, sending in to the destruction of these aircraft weapons the size of a dinner plate, each carrying a couple of pounds of explosive. And look at the damage they did, and look at the success it was as it were a PR coup, quite apart from a military strike. And you think, don't you, about the people on the ground? That couple, the Ukrainian couple, he's managing the transport. She's a tattoo artist. Have they been discovered? What would have been done to them makes the blood run cold.
It really does. And I think there was one moment when this really came home to the couple, Artem Timofeyev and Katerina Timofeyeva. They got a phone call from one of the drivers a few days before the operation was supposed to go live. The roof had slid off one of these cabins on the back of his truck, and he'd spotted these drones. And he called up and said, what on earth's going on? There seem to be drones inside this house. And Timofeyev feigned ignorance and then asked his security service handlers in Kiev what to do. And they made up an explanation which sounded just about plausible to the driver. They said, these are the cabins, they're hunting lodges, and the drones are going to be used to track animals across the large areas. And the driver bought it, closed the lid, and drove onward. And that was a moment when, if they'd been discovered, the Timofeyevs at that point were still in Russia. and there could have obviously been terrible consequences for them.
And you conjure the scenes in that sort of drone control room as the live picture feed is coming in of the bombers being struck, some of them utterly destroyed, some of them just placed beyond use, explosion after explosion, and the cheering in that room. You can almost feel the elation of an amazing operation having run successfully.
Well, the people who are carrying this out are guys who were pulled off the front lines. They were used to being right in the thick of the battle. And suddenly they were given this opportunity to have an impact hundreds, thousands of miles behind the front lines, but have an outsized impact by targeting these very dangerous bombers, which the Russians were using to target cities across the country. So I think it gave them a sense of real elation to have such a big effect with something that was, wasn't a particularly expensive. Yes, it was a highly complex operation, but it's not something that was incredibly expensive to put together.
Yeah, and like all the best stories of this kind in fiction, the original impetus for getting it going came from President Zelensky himself. He's saying we've got to hit these bombers. They're the bit that's hurting us.
Well, that's what we've seen time and again throughout the conflict, is that President Zelensky has said, here's the problem, find me a solution. And the security service of Ukraine has repeatedly done that. They invented naval drones, which have subdued the Russian Black Sea fleet in the Black Sea by using these drones or unmanned seacraft. So time and again, Zelensky has come and asked General Malyuk, the head of the security service of Ukraine, to find a solution to deal with this bigger and dangerous enemy of Russia.
Yeah.
And he's come up with these ingenious ways to do it along with his team.
Well, and is there a wider lesson and a wider source of encouragement here, James? Because Ukraine fights on so outgunned, so outmanned on the front line, it needs an edge somewhere, and it has ingenuity, it has an ability to make a lot out of very little, and this is the best example you can imagine.
I think there absolutely is a bigger lesson here, John, and that is that we've seen repeatedly since the Russian tanks were right on the edge of Kiev, and we saw Ukrainian civilians come out to defend alongside the army in really ingenious ways using drones. It's been 4 years now, and Ukraine still comes up with ways to stop the Russians, even as Western support is kind of waning. And clearly, as Ukraine says, the more support that the West can give to Ukraine, the more they are able to hold off the Russians.
Right. I mean, really terrific piece in the Wall Street Journal, James. Thank you. That's James Marson.
Thanks very much.
The bureau chief in Ukraine for the Wall Street Journal.